Trading the foreign exchange market carries high risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Trading on margin, utilizing leverage can carry an even higher level of risk that can lead to a complete loss of investment funds. So before deciding to trade the foreign exchange market or using any of our software alert products, you should carefully and diligently consider your personal investment objectives, level of experience, and risk tolerance. There is a possibility that you could potentially sustain significant loss. You should not invest any capital or trade that you cannot afford to lose. It is your responsibility to be aware of and understand all risks associated with foreign exchange trading and to seek professional advice from an independent certified financial advisor if you have any doubts. Auvoria Prime does not exercise trading authority over your trades. You and you alone exercise discretionary trading authority over every trade.
All right, so welcome Avorians to the midweek software strategy session. My name is Steve Vettel. Today's the 27th of July. Yes, 2021 has rolled through fast. I'm feeling old today. So as we move into our presentation today, I'm going to do this fairly quickly because we are getting on a plane to Orlando for the big AP event, Ride the Wave. Hopefully I'll be riding the wave of a smooth flight straight into the airport and not the ocean. So with that being said, I want to make sure we check on screen and system. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Feel free to ask questions away. I'm going to go through this quick. Forex Factory. So today we have, as I talked a little bit about on Saturday, keep an eye on these consumer confidence numbers. And obviously it came in high, as you can see, expectations about 7 points over actual forecast. But it's really the CPI stuff that I'm really interested mostly in trying to take a closer look at. They've all come in higher. Everybody's complaining about higher costs for everything, higher demand. No surprise, we're coming out of a pandemic. It's sort of like an uncharted waters of monetary policy, some sort of stimulus depending on the country, and then a whole global macro easing of credit event. So just keep that in mind. I've talked ad nauseum about that over the course of the last. Yeah, I always, with the great thing about recordings that are done on this is that, you know, and this is why I always encourage everybody, even some of the smartest people I know will still listen to TED Talks, or they'll go visit events, or, you know, whatever their favorite motivational speaker is. There's always pieces of nuggets of stuff that you can pick up. I don't care if you're at the top of the food chain. There's always something to be learned. So that's why I recommend going back and listening to some of the recordings for what I've done. Maybe not necessarily for, you know, going through Forex or whatever the charts, but just picking up nuggets of how I'm being able to reduce the risk throughout one's analysis of everything, right? Technical, macro, news-based factors. So with the Forex Factory, that's kind of what I'm on alert for. Do keep in mind, tomorrow is a big event. There is a press conference tomorrow. It can go awry. There has been Fed governors that have made statements that have been out of context. I don't expect that to be the norm, right? But you never know. So the market is sniffing for inflation. It sees it, but it hasn't really heard any large central bank or globally echo that in unison. And that's really going to be the big issue that needs to be watched by the markets. So it'll start to sell off more than likely if it does come to an ugly head in equities, which is going to pan over into essentially everything. So that being said, Thursday, GDP, Friday, another core PCI index you're going to want to take a look at here. You can see that in both April and May, they were above forecast, but in June it was below. So it'd be interesting to see what that reads and on me thesis of higher costs. So let's switch over to the currency. If you guys want me to look at anything while I'm in speed mode of going through this, quick look, S&P 500 for those into the equity markets, which I always consider at least taking a look at. Moving into new highs last week, a little bit of a pullback today. It's more of a breather, if you will. Same thing could be said for NASDAQ. These are daily charts, right? Now, keep in mind, for those trading anything that's NAS based on MT4, either automated or accepting trades manually, got a lot of earnings coming out this week. So be real careful today because the big dogs come out: Google, Amazon, Facebook, right? All three of these guys could totally move the market. If you're playing around in this sandbox, just be clear on potential market moving stuff. It looks like the, you know, we're down today over almost 2% on the Qs. just keep that in mind. So on to the DAX index. I told everybody I would start to look at global indices, at least from a aggregate standpoint. DAX index, very tight range with this daily chart for a fairly long period of time. This is coiling, in my opinion, although it may need the rest of the summer to play out any kind of moves, barring any real earth-shattering stuff coming out of this Delta variant crap or any kind of central bankers. Stock 600, right near the highs. Daily chart again. It's pretty decent resistance up here, right under the 460-ish area. UK, FTSE 100, same thing. It almost looks identical to the DAX, a little bit on the lower side. So keep that in mind. DXY. Okay, so we knew we were on high alert for the fact there may be a reversal off of this whole 93.20-ish area. This is a big area long term. If I shrink this chart up, which I'm not having much luck doing, I have a new mouse. It's not working well today, so let's see if we can scroll this up. Actually, I want to switch over. Hang on a second. I have son's gaming mouse. Let's grab this thing. All right, here we go. Much better. So in the grander scheme, you can see how the dollar index has obviously dropped over a period of time. It's a little easier to see. I like to look at charts in big format. So this whole 93.20-ish areas, 93.50-ish, right in this whole zone right here. So let's take a look at the euro US dollar again, daily chart, grander scheme here. Sitting right on the edge down here. Ultimately, I think that between this 1680-ish area all the way down to 1630-ish, sort of the edge of the cliff, this whole zone, which would essentially mean the dollar's ripping past that high point of 93.50-ish zone. So let's keep that in mind as well. Pound dollar. Let's take a look at the cable. And we've seen a little bit more of a rally, not quite down towards the bottom of the cliff as we're seeing in the other areas of euro. Let's just change there. Of note on this daily chart of dollar CAD is the dojis that have formed last couple of trading days. See these? Right, so that portends possibly a pause, and obviously if the dollar resumes its ascent, it's going to continue to maybe push up towards this top area, which longer term, it's just, yeah, we have a pretty decent resistance line right here at this 2850-ish area, which also is the top of this Bollinger Band, which is the south outer band here, shaded area. USD JPY, a little bit bigger move today. So Euro AUD, let's take a look at that before I go. Here's Euro CAD. Just want you guys to take a quick look at this. Still inside that tight range. It's 50, 30-ish areas, capping it off. Let's take a look at right? So Euro AUD right up against not that solid of a resistance, unfortunately. So the real solid resistance, I think, is the swing and fractal high here of 63.75-ish area, 64, right in that zone. Let's take a look at a weekly chart on this. I haven't looked at this in a while. Let's see if we can zoom this out. So we're right at resistance. We're also coming up against, well, I mean, all three, they have sort of diverged. We're above the short-term 20-day moving average, but we've coming up against, which we're essentially right at. So this looks like a heck anywhere in this whole area, sort of do or die from a moving average convergence standpoint, as well as a resistance line on the squeeze zone indicator. Remember, red counts much stronger, or red is not as strong as whatever the hell you call this, orange. GBP. Let's take a look at the NEO currency. Somebody just asked me about. I can't see. There we go. Alrighty. Weekly. See how big this zone is up there from a resistance standpoint, just from also from candle wick standpoint, right? Switch over to daily. Pretty decent move right back up though. So notice this doji. I mean, obviously there's a lot of other stuff setting up here, right? So here, if I zoom in a little bit, this is easier to see. So oftentimes when you have a rejection reverse, right, for the lack of getting more details, this is a rejection reverse candle here, you'll have a push down to, in this case, a couple of moving averages. We bounced off of that, had sort of an inside day, as they call it. And we sort of broke a one-time framing up that we had going on here. But notice this spinning top doji, sort of an indecision candle formed with this area down below being a support. Is no surprise. We're probably going to go back up and try and tag the area where we were rejected again. So now it really is behooving upon those institutions or whoever the bodies of institutional are they going to defend this? Or are they going to let it move up to 75-ish area where we have a bigger support? And obviously NEO is figuring this all out for us in many cases. But I mean, this really is big resistance zone right in this whole 78 area. Did we blow through this? Obviously, this is going to be dependent on what the cable's probably doing and a whole bunch of other majors and crosses first, right? Probably going to see a bit of a rip. It's probably a zone because we've been here since what, March 20th? This is March, wait, 9th of March. Yeah, so what, more than a year and a quarter we've spent inside this area? That's a big coiling. Now, obviously, some other stuff needs to take place, but anything above this line, I would not be short. All right, so get some crypto questions here. See a little bit of a rally in the coinage. Let's move to daily, but notice it hasn't disrupted everything that I'm actually going to go full screen on this so you can see the whole shebang. Notice if you go back to this whole period of where we are, notice the strength of this support area right here. That's just 30,000 per coinish. Came right up and tagged the top. These are why these support and resistance lines. This one also, for the first time, coincided with the moving average line up at this area. And it served as quick rejection now, but this is due to some of the comments that have been echoed from what I like to call our billionaire shill group, and also the potential that Amazon may accept Bitcoin, but they came right out real quick with that press conference, said that is not true. I cannot see that happening. So that is the coinage. Let's take a look at Ethereum. A little bit of a different story because we're up closer to an interim high. Let's stretch this out. Let's do full screen. I always like to get the whole move in the window. I can see everything that's going on. No surprise, look at that point of control line, which is this red line. It's horizontal. So it's the center point of the action as far as all of the trading volume in an aggregate is. We're right on it. This may serve as a little bit of short-term support in addition to some of these other moving averages that have we've now popped above. So it could serve to maybe retest this upper line. But ultimately, I think that this line on the Bitcoin chart is sort of the same thing, just above 40,000. I think it serves as a failure area, and we're going to go crashing below 30. It would make sense as we put enough time in, maybe, to argue that we crash below that at some point. We'll see. Could be wrong, right? All right. Take a quick look at oil. We're going to begin to spend some time in a trading range here till we get some clarity on. And hopefully nobody else hacks our freaking oil field companies and transportation refining systems here. Be able to get some sort of base built. And it's possible 75 may have capped us for the high for some point, especially if a lot of these fracking operations get back in gear in the US. What else? Gold. Let's take a look at spot. Not a lot going on here, although this is looking kind of flaggy. But ultimately, I just want to spend some time on this from a weekly chart perspective. Get a better picture of what's going on this much noise. A lot of times, one great component of longer term charts from a risk standpoint is it has a tendency to smooth out the noise in a chart. You get to see where the big areas are. Obviously, just under 2,000 an ounce. This whole 1960 area is big resistance. It's also the top of the cloud right here in terms of the bands. And some pretty solid support, which we've now hit twice. I imagine this is probably some sort of volume profile line here as well. That's just hard to measure because I don't have volume coming into this chart, so you'd have to switch over to GLD for that to chart the volume, but it's probably a line somewhere in here to support. So I would expect us to continue to rotate and auction between these levels. So 17 intermediate, this whole 1750 area on the low side. Not as much resistance up here at 1900, but this is the big one here. Just under 2000. Right, guys. Saturday will be a recording. Spread the word. We'll put a note in. So if anybody that's logging into Zoom is like, hey, where's Federal at? He's on stage. So wish everybody luck. Got any questions? Hold them till next Tuesday, which I think may be a recording as well, depending on how it plays out, because we're flying back on that day. So I think I'm going to be out of pocket on that. So we'll test it out. And bear with us while we have our big corporate event going on as far as disruptions in my calls. We will get it all sorted out. Wish everybody a safe week. Happy travels. May the trades be with you.